but it is indeed my, okay, here we go, we're recording. It's indeed my pleasure to welcome you all this evening to the event group of Walks. And it's an extreme pleasure to introduce Danielle Michaud, who has attended more Olympics than I can count and is just back from Tokyo. Well, sorry, he's just back from Sapporo because all the road events and walk events were held in Sapporo for the Olympics this year. But his knowledge and experience are bar none in the world. So with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Danielle and Lily.
Thank you, Jane. As Jane mentioned, Lily and I have been assigned to be monitoring this group of people, the race walk events. So Lily and I have talked about it and what we would want to discuss and what would be interesting for most people. So anybody who wants to address a question in French, for example, we are okay to translate for those who would not understand. And any comments are welcome. The only thing I would like is that anybody could use the function if you want to raise your hands when you want to talk, and keep your microphone to mute when you're not talking. That would help greatly. So we were discussing, Lily and I, what kind of subject we could talk about, and there's tons of things that we would like to discuss. But the one thing that we thought would be important to know is that even though I know most of you, you probably don't know, all of you don't know me or Lily. So I thought that we would introduce ourselves for a minute, and each of us, so we could try to know each other a little better for a few minutes. And then after that, I'd like to discuss two items today, as it was mentioned in the invitation. I'd like to talk to you about the penalty zone, since we will discuss whether we need to use it in Canada or not, and standardizing our process for national events. And then I'm sure other subjects will come up during our discussion. So as I said, if you want to talk, raise your hand and that will facilitate the process. As Jane said, I'm probably the most experienced in the field here. I just came back from my third Olympics, and I have been a race walk judge on the international panel for 30 years. I started in the panel that same year as Peter Hawking back in 1991, and I have done a lot of national, international events. So I think I have a different flavor maybe than some of you, and that's fine. That's why we would want to have a discussion at one point, and everybody's input is welcome. Lily, would you like to introduce yourself a second? You're on mute, by the way.
Hello, I'm Lily Whalen, and I think most of you already know me. First of all, I was a race walker for way over 45 years. I was the first female race walker in Ontario, so that was quite something else. Being all by myself in all the races, so I always won, and I was last at the same time, but it was fun. And then a number of years ago, I was judging for many years prior to be deciding to do something about it, and finally, I decided to get my credits and go from level 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. And I'm very glad I did. And one regret is that I didn't do it sooner. So perhaps I could have become an international race walking judge, but too late now because we're a little too old. And that's about it.
Thank you. If we could take a few seconds to introduce ourselves. I'll start with somebody called Lynne with no last name. You could turn your camera on and then say who you are, where you're from, and that would be a good start.
Danielle, it says I can't turn my video on because the host has stopped it.
Okay, well.
So that's fine. You don't have to see my face. I'm Lynne Mcferrin. I'm from the GTA area.
There you go.
There you go,
Okay,
Lynn.
thank you. I'm an umpire, but I have done a little bit of race walk when needed at nationals and at any of the meets here in Toronto when needed. And I'm interested in getting my accreditation for race walk.
Okay, thank you. Peter Hawking.
Hi. I've been judging as long as Danielle, pretty well. And we've spent more time together than probably anyone else here. So I'm kind of a veteran now, and I don't get invited to places anymore because like Lily, we're getting on the upper side of 60. So there you go.
60?
I didn't say
Okay.
how far up.
Thank you, Peter. Cecile. Cecile. We can't hear. Okay, good.
Sorry. Okay. So I'm from Quebec, as you could think of by the accent and the name. I'm a race walk judge, level 4. I've done many races, of course, provincial and national races with Danielle and Peter and Lily. So I just love it. That's all.
All right, thank you. Peter Fefar.
Hi, I'm a level 5 race walk judge in British Columbia. Don't have to have any chances to do anything because we're not that busy here, but otherwise I enjoy doing it and having fun doing it. That's all.
And now you have a bronze medalist, Olympic bronze medalist in your province.
Tell me about it.
Yep. Stafford.
Okay. Whoops, cannot, okay. Hi, I'm Stafford Whalen. I'm Lily Whalen's husband. I've been involved in coaching, race walking, for 50 years. And I run the Ontario Race Walkers Club. I'm a level 4 race walk judge. And Lily and I fought who's going to go for level 5. And of course, Lily won. But we both enjoy it very much. That's it.
Thank you, Stafford. Marianne.
Hi, I'm Marianne Chichak, and you have dropped my video, so that's okay.
I don't control anything, but that's okay.
Okay, I'm a level 3 race walk judge. I got my level 3 in 2018, and I'm also a level 4 umpire. And I enjoy everything. What we find in Edmonton is that we have a hard time getting race walk judges out, and that's very frustrating. And the other frustrating thing is to be a race walk judge and a chief umpire or something at the same meet. It's very intense, but
Very
it's
demanding.
rewarding.
Yep.
And that's it.
Lynn Cozina.
Hello, I'm a track umpire, and I've worked a lot with Lily. Oh, you're asking me to start my video. Here I am. I've worked on the track for just almost 5 years now, so I'm a rookie compared to everyone else. But I've worked a lot with Lily and Lynn and the other track referees and Laura and Sherry, and they convinced me to think about learning more about race walking. So I've been around race walking just as a regular umpire when everybody's doing the race walking. So I'm interested in learning more and seeing if I could perhaps eventually help with the race walking judging.
Thank you, Lynn. Joanne.
Hi there, I'm Joanne Gage. I started as a race walker with Bytown Walkers about, start my video. There we go. Started with Bytown Walkers about 15, 16 years ago as a race walker under the esteemed coaching of Roger Burrows. And I got called into coaching. And so I'm now a club coach in the process of becoming certified, got into judging, and I'm a baby judge. I think I've been a level 2 race walk judge for, I guess, about 2 years now. And I'm from the Ottawa area.
Ottawa area, yep. Ann Perry, another Ottawa official.
Here. Yeah, technology challenge. I actually got my level 2 race walk judge. I found it October 1991. So I was busy back in the late 90s, early thousands, and then I got into photo finish, level 5, umpire 3, finish line. So I'm going to get back into it. Lily mentioned this on the weekend. I go, oh, I think I should maybe attend. So I was lucky enough to get an invitation. So I'm back.
You. Ken Wall, long time no see.
Hey everybody, Ken Wall here from Richmond, British Columbia. I've been officiating for many moons, and it's a pleasure to be part of this group. I'm a level 5 race walk judge, and my claim to fame is when Evan Dunphy was a grade 8 student, I disqualified him. And he learned from that day to walk fairly, and I'm so glad he did. And here he is winning the bronze medal at Tokyo. So great to see everybody.
Winning a bronze medal in Sapporo.
That's it. Sorry, Sapporo, that's right.
Okay, Chantal Gauthier.
Hi, I'm from Quebec, so I'm an umpire, but also at the same time, I did my level 2 and 3 as race walker judges. Now I'm in progress to obtain my 4. So I hope that for 2022. So I will be level 4. So it's a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Somebody by the name of iPad 35. Can you recognize yourself, Mr. or Mrs. iPad 35? No? Okay, so Sandy Archibald.
Hi, I'm here with Dave Archibald. I'll talk first. So we're in the Ottawa area. I'm a Bytown walker as well, first as a race walker and as a coach for the Bytown walkers, and I'm a level 1 official. I just fill in as a judge sometimes if we need one locally. And turn it over to Dave.
Hi, I'm Dave Archibald. I'm a level 2 race walking judge, primarily race walking. And I have been a judge for about 2 years also, same as Joanne. And I have done races in the Ottawa area, the GTA, and as well as in Welland.
You've been a judge longer than 2 years.
Is it? Oh yeah, okay. Sure.
Thank you. Sherry.
Hello, Sherry Watts. I'm from London, Ontario. I've been a race walker for about 30 years and got to compete with Lily, got to see the backside of Lily beating me a lot. I've been a coach for about 25 years, and I'm a level 3 race walk judge and hoping to move up to 4.
Thank you. Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Welshman. I'm another one of the 3 racewalk judges from Alberta. I started out as a master's athlete and then got into judging, which I found very enjoyable, although I think I've topped out at level 3 because we have so few national events out here that qualifying above level 3, it seems to be increasingly difficult or impossible, but still fun even at a 3.
Thank you. Jesse.
Hi, I'm Jessie Chang from Edmonton, Alberta as well. I am a level 3 walk judge and also work sometimes as a track umpire.
Thank you. Alicia.
I'm Alicia Friday from Toronto. I have very limited race walk experience. It just goes back to 2 or 3 weeks now since I've been walking with Lily and Stafford. But hopefully I would like to become a judge at some point.
Thank you. Madeleine. T'es là, Madeleine? OK. Dernière chance, Madeleine. Peut-être tu des difficultés avec ton volume. OK, on va passer à Laura Houston.
Okay, because I'm on my phone, so there won't be any video. Anyway, it's Laura up in Ottawa. I started with By-Town Walkers back in 2003 as a competitor. As a little girl, I used to do what my father used to say, heel and toe. We used to do heel and toe races down the street. But and then in the last 5 years, I've got into officiating. So I'm now 3 as a race walk judge and 3 as a track umpire, and working towards 3 for horizontal jumps. And just want to say, I think it's an awesome sport, and it's great to see some familiar faces and some new faces on this session here.
How come you talk about new faces as you're on the phone? You can't see us.
I can see you. I can see you. It's just my video. It's not letting me come in.
Ah, OK. Just your video. All right. Madeleine, est-ce que tu es là? OK. François Pape, c'est toi ça, iPad 35? Okay, I thought it was important that we introduce each other because frequently we don't work, a lot of us together very frequently. Some people in the West Coast, some people in Alberta and Ontario and in Quebec mostly. I thought it was important, even though it took a little bit of time to introduce ourselves. So what I would like to do next, and sorry for those who didn't have a chance to introduce themselves, you could do that later. I would like to share with you, for the first item, I would like to share a presentation, quick presentation I put together, which is called the Penalty Zone. Maybe some of you have not had the chance to work with the Penalty Zone yet, or if you have, I'd like just to introduce a brief history, my recollection in the last few years. Why do we now have a penalty zone in race walking? One of the reasons we had a penalty zone is that the IAAF, it was IAAF at the time, now it's changed to World Athletics, but at the time they realized there was a major problem with youngsters, people who were particularly U18 and U20 categories, where they had a lot of disqualification because these athletes had never seen a judge, never been judged by an international or an area judge before. And at World Championships, for example, what we had in Moncton in 2010 or Sherbrooke in 2003, there were lots of disqualification from athletes who were out for the first time. So the committee decided one of the possible solutions would be to give a time penalty to athletes when they enter a zone after receiving a 3rd red card. Instead of being disqualified, they will get a time penalty. And that would give them a chance to, of course, have a longer time, but have a chance to possibly finish the event, and knowing that the officials are not really happy with their form. The 4th card would be the card that would disqualify an athlete. The penalty had to be long enough that the athletes would really want to, it would protect the athletes who are walking properly. I will get back to that a little later. And the first term was not penalty zone, was called pit lane. I guess it refers to Formula One races where they're going to pit lane for a few seconds to recharge and they're not moving. Here are the times that we now have for the penalties, 5,000 meter or 5K, anything up to that. That includes 3,000, includes 1,000, includes 2,000, anything is a half a minute. And and the rest is pretty much a minute for every 10 kilometer. The new event, the new 35K would be introduced in the fall, and it's obviously 3.5 minutes. Just a little bit of an add-on here. I said the penalty were twice as long, but they were changed 2017. We were really not affected here in this country, but some other country were. The process is, as I said, you set up a penalty. It's not very complicated. It's usually near the posting board. Athletes with a third card are ushered in. They spend the time they need to spend in the penalty zone, and they leave only when the time is completely elapsed. If there's a fourth red card after spending the time in the penalty, the athlete becomes disqualified. Same as usual, if somebody finishes and there's a third or fourth rather card comes in, they will be disqualified. If the fourth red card arrives before they enter the penalty, there's no need to send them in the penalty box, penalty zone. They will be disqualified immediately. And the last bit is important too, is that sometimes the last card could come in the last lap. So if an athlete doesn't have time to go in the penalty zone, we add the appropriate time to the penalty time to their time. At the inception, as I said, it was originally designed for U18 and U20. And one of the first event was the Youth Olympics, which is a U18 event in China in 2014. The intent of that, they've called pit lane, was to have all the pit lane for the U18, U20 races held by the IAAF. The last of the U18 was in Nairobi in 2017. And that I put that there because there was a little bit of confusion. The new time came in, so one of the race had a wrong time in the penalty because the officials didn't know exactly what the time they should have put, because it was had been voted by the council as a new time. Anyway, we could skip that. But then entered the team competition, which became the game changer. Team competition, you enter 3 athletes in an event, and the top 3 would score. The ranking would be produced among those who had at least 3 finishers. But without a penalty zone, as it was before, the third red card would disqualify an athlete, and the number of teams that could score were really lower than expected. But with the penalty zone, the fourth red card is the one that disqualifies an athlete. Even though there's a time added, it gives a chance to have less disqualification and more teams with 3 scoring. So the IAAF adopted this penalty zone for team competition only at that point. And in Rome, 2016 was the first pit lane for open competitors, not U18 or U20 as originally thought. And incidentally, that was the first race where there was a female athlete in the 50K for an international event by the IAAF. Now, in Rio, we didn't have a pit lane. In World Championship in London, we didn't have a pit lane. But then some key countries adopted the pit lane for their own events, which was another game changer. In 2018, IAAF renamed pit lane to penalty zone, which is now the current term we use. Youth Olympic, the penalty was used as expected because that's originally the group targeted. But IAAF adopted the penalty zone in all their championships. Now it's a fact. And the World Championship in Doha in 2019, it was the first time there was a penalty zone at IAAF Championship. And I was chiefing that event, so I firsthand on how to operate it. And at Tokyo Olympic, there was the first Olympic game with penalty zone. And for those who may not know, the Tokyo Olympic was the last 50K for World Athletics. Now it will be a 35 kilometer. Apparently 50K is too long. And now the penalty zone is here to stay for any World Athletic event. And more countries are adopting that format for their own national competition. So that was my brief introduction on why the penalty zone. For those who may not have used it yet, that's how we operate it and why we do have it internationally and why we have it nationally as well. Any comments on this point about a penalty zone? Can anybody just show a hand on if anybody has never used a penalty zone yet? Just use your device, say, and raise your hand.
Danielle?
Yes, Stafford.
Stafford here. I'm putting together a new website, and as part of it, there's going to be a judging section that will help people learn how to judge. And there's an excellent animated video on the penalty zone I'm including in that. I will share that with everyone in this meeting in about a week's time when it's out.
That's good. Thank you. So a few people have seen that. I've never used the penalty zone before. I know for those who are doing events with masters, it's not a fait accompli for them yet. Not to my knowledge, maybe they will
Yes,
change.
it is, Danielle.
It is now? Okay.
It is now. Yeah.
Okay, but it wasn't up last year.
Exact, you're right.
So it's the first year the penalty zone is used for masters.
Yes.
So since we haven't had many events lately because of COVID, maybe you've never seen that in action, and this is here to stay. So it's a reason why I thought it was important for us to understand what a penalty zone is and why we have it. Lily, you have your hand up?
Yeah, no, the penalty zone is not used for the masters, neither at regionals or national championships and masters or the World Masters Athletic Championship. There's no penalty zone for masters.
Are you sure about that?
100%, 100%.
Because
it's in the rule book. It's in the Masters WMA rule book. No penalty zone for masters. Has never been and it never will be, because most masters are old and a lot of them have bad knees and all that, so it would be a nightmare. But yeah, I'm positive, 200%.
Okay, I'll read again. I'd
Okay.
like to know, Danielle, for races, smaller races like 1500 and for the youngsters 800, could we forget the penalty zone?
Well, that's something that we could debate at the provincial level, because the national events are 3K and up. And yes, that's a problem, because right now the rules say 30 seconds for anything below 5K. And what would be the penalty for a 1500 meters would be 9 seconds. What would be the penalty for 2000 would be 12 seconds if we go with the proportion. So that should be discussed at the lower level, at a provincial level. I think what we should be concerned here at this point is that we will deal with national events. And as you are the people involved in your province, you should be able to make up a proposal for your own province on what to use in terms of penalty zone if you're doing 1500 meters or 1000 meters or whatever other event. Serge, you have a hand raised?
Yeah, just want to say that AC narration rules say that all events have to have the penalty zone.
At the national level?
Anything, that means AC variation is covering all the events. We're not talking about national championship.
The thing with 1500 meters and 3000, before you actually even can DQ some people, 1500 meters is done. It's too short a race, and 3000 meters is just too short a race to DQ 4 athletes. It really doesn't make any sense to have penalty zone for 1500 and 3000, in my opinion, that is. Because I see results in races in other provinces were in a 1500 where they used the penalty zone, but there was no time to bring the person in the penalty zone. So they went in added 30 seconds to the 1500 meters result, which really is too much. It's just not enough time to bring the person into a penalty zone. 1500 meters could be anywhere from 7 minutes to 10 to 50 to 10 to maybe 10, 12 minutes for a beginner. So, but usually people can do a 1,500 meters in 6 minutes if you're really fast, of course.
Mm.
Anyways, that's my opinion.
Okay, well, that's a touchy subject in terms of smaller events.
Yeah.
IAAF is concerned with 5,000 meter and above. And that's why the rules is specified to be 5,000 and above. Our difficulty is that we do run 3,000, we do run 2,000, we do run 1,500 at provincial levels. And that causes some issue in terms of whether we could do a penalty zone. Excuse me, if we do a penalty zone indoors on a 200 meter track, that's probably easier than doing it on a 400 meter track outdoors, simply because of the timing and you see the athlete more often. But again, as Serge mentioned, any event in Canada should have a penalty zone. The problem is, how do you implement that in terms of timing? And IAAF didn't specify any time. And then if we go by what we want in each province, that might be a problem to decide who is the standards or person going to the Legion, for example, whether they had a penalty time in there, and then whether their time would be valid or not if they added 15 seconds or versus 12 or versus 30. So this is probably a debate that we could bring up to the rules committee at one point to see what does national view should be for using a penalty zone at lower event than 5,000 meter, 5K on the road.
Yeah, I like that idea.
So I appreciate Serge's input that says that's what it says now, but maybe for practical reason, we should consider whether we have the ability to do it or whether it's practical to do it. And maybe we could have a variation that talks about 3,000 meter and above, or whatever we want to stipulate. So that could be a discussion for another time. I don't want to hog too much time on the timer at this point. People could mull over what they think should be appropriate for that penalty, the times, and then maybe a discussion at our next meeting, we could come up with a suggestion for the rules committee to deal with penalties time for events, or whether we should actually have a penalty for 1,500 meter and lower.
Yeah, I concur with that.
Laura, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, has there ever been a thought or a discussion about for the shorter races having not the requirement of 3 red cards? Because like Lily says, we don't see the athlete the same number of times. So, you know, because it's 3 red cards, regardless of whether it's 5,000 meters or 20K. So has there ever been a discussion about saying for a shorter distance, you only need 2 red cards, for example?
Oh, I could tell you there were discussions in years ago, and I don't think there was any resolution as to how we should deal with these events that are shorter in terms of a standard, whether we do 1,500 meters and lower, we say 2 judges is enough. We've never came up, as far as I know, we never came up with a consensus on that item. So that could be another item to bring for discussion or a suggestion at one point, but right now it's still 3 to my knowledge. I remember that we've talked about it when, in particular in games situation where they're, you know, our province is divided in 18 or 19 regions. They send people to score points, and we have a lot of tourists in the event. So we've discussed that over the years, but I don't think we've ever come up with a method to say 2 is needed or 1 is enough, or whatever other method than the typical 3 that we have at this point. But I keep that, Laura, for a discussion for another meeting, because I'd like to get to the next item at one point. And because I think there's a lot of things we need to mull over. This is our first meeting. I don't think we're going to cover everything. Any other question? Okay, Laura, you still have your hand up. Is that because you didn't take it out or you want another discussion?
Oh, no, I don't know how to raise, sorry, ignore me. I
Okay,
don't,
sorry, no, you're down. It's Miriam now who has a question.
Miriam. Okay.
Sorry, Miriam. I think you're on mute.
Okay, sorry about that. In Alberta, we have tried the penalty zone and it hasn't been that successful. Number one, it takes, if you follow the rules, it takes, a few people to set that penalty zone up, one in, one out, one at a time. The thing that we find the most is we just don't have the people. And even on a track, you can't get those red cards to you quick enough. You need a runner. You need somebody by every judge. We just don't have the people to do that. So we tend to not use it. We have, but we tend not to. And we do have an Alberta provincial race coming up on September 11th, and we're not going to use it. So, and it isn't an outdoor track this time. So that's all I wanted to say. And I will mute myself now. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. I could say it over the years, the first few years, it was a bit of a struggle to set up and how many people do you need? Do you need somebody at the entrance, somebody at the outside, somebody who's going to usher the athlete in, somebody who's there. The board is usually across the way, either on the road or on the track, and the recorder could become the person who ushered the athletes in. And so, yes, it's a matter of having enough people. Definitely needs a little bit of thoughts in terms of bit of thinking in terms of logistics around. We usually have not enough volunteers, so we may have one volunteer that goes around for red cards, and again, that slows the process down. So yes, that's an issue. It's not to say that it cannot be resolved, but it's an issue. It becomes an issue of how many people do you have on hand at some meeting.
Yeah, the manpower.
Yeah. Thanks for that comment. One of the objectives of our meeting here is that we would like to suggest at one point a national standard on how do we organize our national events. We're not talking short event. We're talking 10K, 20K on the road or on the track. The reason why we'd like, Lily and I discussed that, is that we would like to set up a method that is always going to be the same. We are not going to question ourselves every time we start a competition. Do we do this or do we do that? And obviously, the national events has longer events. They're usually on the road. There's usually a chance to have more volunteers. And since our national event sometimes decides who goes to international competitions, it's important for us to set the standards so that there is no question. So I'm going to upload another presentation. And the reason why I'd like to present that today is that I don't expect we're going to come up with a consensus today, but I would like to present an idea, a suggestion. People could discuss that. People could think about it. The next time we meet, we could have a chance to have experience maybe with others, what would be our national standards. And the point here I'm making is for national championship, not for provincial event, not for a challenge between provinces or a dual meet. It's just for our national championship, which is either indoors, if there's any, or outdoors, on road or on the field, on the track. Sometimes we do have the same questions. Do we use the penalty zone or not? We've talked about it briefly. Does the chief judge act as a judge or not? The rule book is specific that a chief judge for some event is just an administrator and only judges the last event. Do we want to apply that to our national event as well? which means does the chief judge has the extra power at the last 100-meter or not? And what would be a number of judges required to have a national event? So what we would like to suggest is that we could come up eventually, if we're lucky enough and discuss that thoroughly enough, to come up with a consensus that we'd be able to suggest to NOC so they would always be the same. We would never have to ask these questions before, is there a penalty, is the chief judging or not? All these questions. So what we're suggesting is that we will give you a suggestion. We will give a rationale for our position. We could discuss the position. We'll let people think about it. We would let people send comments if they want. You all know my email address since I sent you the invitation. We'll try to reach a consensus in our next meeting. And if we do reach a consensus, we will pass that consensus to NOC for action so that it will become a standard. I know for some of you who've never been to a national championship, that might be a little bit abstract, but most of you have been to the event big enough that you would understand why we would like to take a position. Our suggestion for discussion, do we use a penalty zone or not at a national championship? Yes, we should have a penalty zone in a national championship. Athletics Canada has it in role. Not that it could not change, but currently it does. All international competitions have penalty zone. So if we select athletes to go to the international event, they will face that. So they better have it in the national event. It reduces the number of disqualification. People go in the zone. Sometimes they get disqualified, but most of the time they don't. And it's already used in some provinces. So this is our suggestion for the time being. I'll go through the whole presentation, and then we could discuss it briefly. Does the chief judge act as a judge or not? I think we say yes as a judge, and we don't have enough judges at our events, even the national events, to have the luxury of having one person who only does the last 100 meters. The chief is frequently the most experienced judge, so we don't have him as him or her acting as a judge. We're losing, and the rules specify that the chief judge is only acting as a judge in only the important international competition. Even some less important international events like dual meets or events, even though they're international, the chief is also among the judges. So that's our suggestion: is yes, the chief judge will become a judge. But the parallel to that is we'll keep the extra power for the last 100 meters, as the rules say for some international event. And our suggestion is no. We suggest that the chief judge is one of the judges like any other, and should not have any more power than any other one. And that would give us a chance also to bring up mentorship sooner, because if we keep the last 100 meters as extra power, that puts a lot of pressure on new officials who are not necessarily experienced, and then it might be difficult to manage for some of the people. And as I repeat again, the rules 55, 54, 4, 1, and 2 are for important international competition, not even all international competitions. So I think our job would be, it would be easier if the chief judge is to be one of the judges, like one of the judges, no more power. Now, what would be a minimum required? Well, one of the question remains if we do adopt the penalty zone or not. I think at the national level, if we say yes, then we would, bare minimum is 4 judges. We would recommend a minimum of 5. Indoors, 5 is okay. Outdoors, if 5 is sometimes not enough, if we have a long 2 kilometer out and back, or even any kind of a loop where judges would be far between if there's not enough. And if we say we don't have a penalty zone, well, we would recommend a minimum of 4 because that's the number to set the record. So our suggestion is our next meeting, we would bring it up again. We would wait for opinions. You could have an opinion now and give us your opinion at this point, but we would like to make that suggestion today, let people think about it. If some of you are ready to want to make comments at this point on any of the 3 items, let's talk about it. Anybody is interested in breaking the ice?
Well, I'd like to make a comment regarding the penalty zone in Sapporo. This was in the women's race. The Chinese athlete in a 20K end up in the penalty zone. And so she did her 2 minutes and then she managed to win the 3rd medal, even with a 2 minutes penalty zone. So sometimes the penalty zone is good in a way that the athlete is really fast, but sometimes it doesn't work out. I don't know if an athlete, in my opinion, if an athlete went into the penalty zone, that athlete should be very careful in the next, I don't know, 1 or 2 cases that she has to go. Because she might end up being disqualified after. You probably saw it, Daniel. I think I saw you judging. I watched the whole race.
Yeah, I was never near the penalty zone.
The one thing is, this is not about the penalty zone, but never mind. I'll ask later. Okay.
Oh, okay. Now I have 2 hands up and I have a face who popped up. So I suppose his hand will come up, Peter, later. Laura,
Yeah,
you
how
have
to do
a,
that.
Laura, you want to say anything?
Sorry, yeah, just a question. That bullet that you said, does the chief judge have any more power than the other judges in the last 100 meters?
Yes.
Except it is just the chief judge, the one that can ask the athlete to, or the walker to step off the track, right?
Yes, that's what the rule says internationally. If the chief judge decides in the last 100 meters that the athlete is not walking properly, has the power to, on his own or her own, to disqualify.
Right.
But
But
you
at any-
suggest to not have that at our national championships.
Pardon me?
We suggest to not have that at our national championships.
So any other time the chief judge can do it, it's just the last 100 meters of the race.
Yeah, if you look at the rules in 55.4.1 and 55.4.2, it describes that at some international event, the highest international event, the chief judge is not a judge, only judges the last 100 meters and has the power to disqualify regardless of how many red cards have come in for the last 100 meters. Now, we suggest that if a judge is judging like the whole race, that person should not have that extra power that judge has at the international event. Is that clear enough?
Yes, thank you.
All right, Jennifer?
Hi, so I liked most of the suggestions you made very much, but this last one that you've just been talking about, the rationale puzzled me. You suggested that it was somehow novice chief judges were going to be put in a difficult position or be under extra pressure. I puzzled as at how at a national event such a novice chief judge would be chief judge. I don't see these as different in the way that you suggest, and maybe I'm missing something. So perhaps you could expand on.
Yeah, it was a one-liner that was there, but it may need more explanation. Yes. What I meant is that if we do keep the extra power for the chief judge, it could be it could be more difficult for somebody who is less experienced that you want to bring as a chief judge, because we all want to become chief at one point. Then maybe give them a little too much pressure that we would alleviate if we do not have that extra power. That it would be one of the judges like any other judge in the race. So the chief judge would not have the extra power the last 100 meters to make any decision on his or her own.
Can I just add, this will just be my one follow-up and then I'll shut up. It seems to me that the situation you describe is far more likely to occur at a provincial event than a national event. And so it seems to me the rationale is backwards, and that's why I'm still puzzled about it. But if you were going to forbid it, it would be at the provincial level, not the national one.
Okay. Anybody else wants to wait on that? Peter, you have not raised your hand, but you've opened your camera.
I haven't figured out the raising the hand thing on the Zoom thing, but There you go. I figured my face would do it. That'll scare you. I agree with all your proposals, with one caveat on the minimum number of judges. That it's correct numbers, but I think we should qualify it as level 3 or higher. Too many times at our national championships in the recent years, it's been who's here and who can be judges, as opposed to let's have 6 judges there. And you look through all the list of all the officials that are there and say, oh, that person judged once, let's let them do it. And I think we need to have insurance that there are 6 qualified judges. If we want to have some level 2s work in association or shadow judge, or be mentored somewhat there, that's good. But I don't think they should be the official judges and whatever.
Okay. No, I point taken. It was omitted on purpose because we were going to bring that up next meeting. But I think this you made your point clear. If you want a national championship, you want to have like any other event, you wouldn't give a national championship a referee level 2 to a national championship. So the same thing here should apply.
Right.
Yeah, if I may, there was a discussion at the end of last year, prior to the AGM of AC, about the quality and quantity of judges for setting records. So that was discussed. I was in the panel, so was Danielle, and so was Tim Barrett and other officials. So we can talk more about that at the next session, like Danielle suggested.
Any other comments on the suggestion, the proposal we have come up with?
Jane's as his end up.
Okay, didn't see that. Jane.
Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out the unmute. It won't listen to me. Just in regard into the chief judge's powers in the final 100 meters, we're in the national championships, often we're getting athletes ready to go to a competition above and beyond the national level, like the world level, or it might be an area level. And I'm wondering if the chief judge doesn't have that power in the last 100 meters, if it's a detriment to the athletes who are competing, in that they should know that in the last 100 meters, even if they don't have any cards, that if they run in the last 100 meters, that there's going to be a consequence.
Okay. Point well made. Thank you. I suppose Peter Fefar, since you turn on your camera, you want to say something. And then you should unmute yourself if you want to.
Shoot. Okay. Just one question. What's with the chip insole? Did you hear? Can you tell us anything about that? Remember they wanted to put a chip inside the shoe.
Yeah, well, that is still at a project at the World Athletics. There was a movement, years back to put a chip in the shoe. Actually, a whole sole would be able to measure whether the athlete is off the ground or not, and for how long. And the discussion would be, okay, so how many times and how long is accepted? We all know that the eye can see only 25 images a second. So 1/40th of a 1/40th of a second.
40 milliseconds.
40 millisecond. That's what I was unable to say. Is not something we could see. So if we set up the shoe with that as a parameter, it will be similar to somebody watching or not. So, but then if we go faster than that, if there's a counter, how many times you say, well, after 20, 10, just one, the athlete should be receiving a card. That hasn't been, to my knowledge, hasn't been resolved. And there's a lot of the technicalities about, it might be nice to do it at the World Championship, Olympic Games, but Are we going to be able to implement that on a national event, provincial event, let alone the provincial events? So no movement that I know of on that front. It's maybe a solution for the very high-end competitions, but definitely not the solution for our national events. Not yet.
And just to confirm with Lily, she's right. In race walking, the masters do not use a penalty zone, according to my rules.
I've been around with the masters for eons.
Correct.
I have judged at the World Masters. I have judged and I have competed, and I know there is no penalty zone.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. Yes.
Just out of curiosity, so 35K will be the longest distance, and are they going to retain the 20K for men and women? Because at one point they were talking of making it a 10K for like the seniors, but I guess it's that would have been too short.
Yeah, the two events right now, as of November 2021, at the World Athletics would be 20 kilometers and 35.
For men and women, 35 as well.
Yes.
Right. Thank you.
One of the reasons was a push from the IOC to reduce the distance because they thought it was too long.
Right.
Although you could argue that there are cycling events that take 6 hours. So that's, but this has been the discussion for a number of years, and the axe has come down that this is the event that that will be 35K. So starting next summer, the World in Eugene, Oregon, it will be at 35K as the longest event.
And in your opinion, I think there's more for 20K. I tend to see results, and the distance of the loop is 1K usually. Are you seeing more and more of 1K loops versus 2K loops?
Yes. That question has been, again, at our national events, the last couple of times I've been to a national event, we did it on a 1K loop, even the 20K. 20 is usually, worldwide is now, the standard is 1K out and back. 20 turns, obviously, 40 if you say twice each one. There's 2 turns per lap. 50 was usually on the 2K loop. That's what happened in Sapporo. That was what's what happened in Rio. That's what happened in Doha. However, with the 35, the question remains as to whether we're still going to have 2 courses, or everybody will do on a 1K loop, a 1K out and back rather.
Right.
So I think a jury's still out on that one. I don't think that there's a resolution at this point of on what the standard will be, or will there be a standard depending on who wants to put up the event.
Right. Okay, thank you.
So on our proposal, okay, Peter, you want to add something?
One more question. Will that presentation be available, the one you had?
Sure.
Can be downloaded somehow?
I will email to everybody.
Thank you.
And the simple reason is I wanted to make sure that everybody would have a chance to look at it, and even though they were not present here, to have a chance to form an opinion. If they want to if you want to give me email feedback, I'm willing to read it and include it in our discussion. The idea is we would like to propose to NOC some things that doesn't change, that we're not going to an event and say, oh, will there be, is the chief judging today or not? Or will have the extra power available or not? That we always do the same way. So I understand we not always have the same opinion, and why do we want, as I said, I heard Jane's comment. I took it, and I understand that it could be something we could debate, and I don't have a problem changing. I don't have a problem if we could all agree, or if we could all have at least a consensus of what we think is appropriate for our national championships.
Okay.
Any other point? Any other feedback? Yes,
Just one.
Lily.
So did they use did the chief judge in Sapporo did only the last 100 meters?
Yep. As per rule 54.4.1, because it was a competition 1.1, which is the top list of the competition, the chief judge was only judging the last 100 meters.
And one more quick thing, I noticed that every judge had like a companion with the person, the judge will tell the other person this athlete has a, the cue, like an assistant.
Yeah, that was an assistant for, in theory, it was an assistant to help us when, instead of having a bicycle picking up red cards, there was a telephone system where the telephone was used to enter the information so that athletes would be notified faster.
Right.
The telephone travels a lot faster than a bicycle on a 2K loop. And so the assistant's point was brought in to do that. Ultimately, this is not exactly how it happened, because we were given the phone and we had to enter the information, because not only did we provide the red cards, but we also had to write in our yellow paddles at the same time. So it became cumbersome. So the assistant was kind of our backup system. They were writing down what we were doing, just to make sure that if we missed something, that they could bring it back to say, well, you didn't do the red card, or you wrote it on your form and you something that you didn't do, or vice versa. So we all have an assistant, and the intent was to make sure there was no errors.
Right.
Okay, I see. I haven't been looking at the chat, but
oh yeah.
And Serge, you've been monitoring the chat.
Yes, Dad.
Okay. Anybody has another comment on the proposal so far? And I know we've been going on for over an hour, and that was our goal, is to possibly stay within the hour, because I know people have to leave. We're on a 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's different time zone elsewhere in the country. So what I would suggest is I would send to everybody, even those who didn't show up, the two presentations that will give you an idea of those who didn't hear or didn't understand. As I said, this is a brief history of the penalty zone. This is my recollection of how it came to be. And then the proposal is something we've discussed, Lily and I, with others. And we're willing to agree to a consensus on what we think is appropriate. And what we hope is that if you have any comments between now and our next meeting, that we could, we will be willing to receive them. I will share them with Lily. And if we are able to put together, if we already have a consensus at that point via email, then that will be simple. But we would like to discuss that on the next item. So do you have time to think and mull over and think about even like Jane's comment about the last 100 meters that they will face in other countries when they go to World Championship, or even the extra power. I could remove the blurb that I wrote about mentoring, which seemed to be confusing more than anything else. So how about we have a meeting? We suggest a meeting in about a month, like third week of September, if there's time available from athletics. Serge, is there anything on that week that's scheduled already?
Which date?
Anywhere in the third week of September, like.
I need to check.
Okay. Jane, unmute yourself. You want to be heard. Jane, you can't hear you.
I don't know why you can't hear me. I put my video on.
I can't read lips.
Yeah. That could have been a good test.
Hey, I took my mask off. Come on.
Oh yeah, true.
There are already 2 in that week. Not that you can't have one in that week, but I believe we have a federal election on the 20th.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe the fourth week.
The,
would be
the fourth
better.
week might be better. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We do have a federal election. Somebody called an election, didn't consult us.
No,
No, they didn't call me.
Didn't
Out
call
there.
me either. Huh? Okay, so I would talk to Serge and look at the time in the 4th week of September. Do you think it giving people enough time to think about and come up with arguments or just a consensus? I don't hear anybody saying anything opposite. So
How about the 23rd of September? Is that Thursday? That would be like too long, or the 16th? Or, sorry, you want after the election, right?
yeah, after the election, yeah, preferably. And we
Yeah.
may, depends on what mood we'd be in at the time.
But on the 21st, we have already another group called the Throws. I don't know what happened, but they're going the 21st.
What about the 23rd then? How do you feel about that, Danielle?
I'm okay.
Jane?
23rd is a Tuesday or Wednesday or what?
Thursday.
Thursday.
23rd. Okay, well, we'll pencil that in even though I'm using a pen. And
Or we can do Wednesday. If you want, we can do Wednesday or Thursday, one or the other.
Thursday is fine.
Okay.
And so what I suggest is I will send the 2 presentations to everybody. I will remind people that we would like feedback so that we could possibly try to see if we have a consensus by the 23rd of September. And if we do, then we'll forward that to NOC to see this is what we suggest should be the national standard for our national events.
Sounds good to me.
And then we could discuss at that point the number that's required, the level of judges, like Peter mentioned, that's required for those events. And if we do have time, we could see what about Laura's problem of 2 judges instead of 3 for shorter events, whether that's desirable or not. That could be a discussion if we have time.
Well, we have done it in the past if we only had 2 judges, the provincial level. Let's say we only had 2 judges, and I only took 2 judges to the queue because there was not a 3rd judge. So it was by default. But I never seen when we have more than 2 judges that you only take 2, but it's a good discussion, yes.
Yeah, I did a provincial event 35 years ago with me, myself, and I. That was 3. And we always agreed.
Well, that's the main thing, isn't it?
That's easy to maintain, and you have 3, that you,
You all
me,
3
myself,
saw
and
the
I.
same thing. You all 3 saw the same thing, so.
Oh, yeah. We always agreed, and that was easy enough. But anyway, so yes, that might solve some problems locally.
Yeah.
We might want to bring that up as well with NOC at one point so that it's appropriate, or how can we make it a change? Or I mean, we may have our opinion here, but we also may want to be able to see what steps we need to take to make that happen. And particularly the communication around this is one problem that we have seen throughout pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, during pandemic. Communication is our problem, because decisions are made somewhere by committees or by Athletics Canada Rules Committee, and the information doesn't trickle down to everybody. So we need to work on those. Okay, so it's 15 minutes past 8 o'clock my time. So I would like to thank you. I don't know if Jane would like to have the last word, but I will first say thank you for everybody for attending. For those who had a chance to say something, thank you for your comments. And as I said, feel free to send emails with comments, suggestions on the proposal or any other topics that you would like to discuss. I have a ton of topic I'd like to bring, like mentoring, training and all that stuff, but I think we will take it one at a time. And Jane, would you like to close?
Sure. I would just like to thank everybody for attending, as Danielle said, and also to thank Danielle and Lily for preparing the information this evening. And just to follow up on something Anne and somebody else mentioned, you don't have to be a certified judge in any of these event groups. You're allowed to join any event group that is of interest to you. So please feel free to join starts or combined events or whatever event group tends to interest you, because there's an event group for almost every discipline that we have. So once again, thank you to Danielle and Lily. It was a great session, and I hope you all enjoyed it.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. I certainly did. Night, everybody.
Laura has a hand up.
Laura's hands up.
Yeah, sorry, just that quick question you said about those other groups. How would one go about finding out or to get their name on the invite list?
The best thing, Laura, is contact your branch chair, and they can forward you to whoever are the event group leaders. Danielle and Lily happen to be the event group leaders for walks, and for each one of the event groups, there are a leader and an assistant. So you know your branch chair, and that's probably the easiest person to get a hold of.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you. Good night.